there we go. I'm here to talk to you about a slightly different angle on the crypto world, and really to talk about the traditional capital markets and how we as Mesh.trade have created a financial market infrastructure that essentially makes the capital markets so much more efficient, more easy to access, open to all, and more transparent. So I'm going to cover today three areas. The one is I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the capital markets globally, just to give you a sense of why the opportunity is so huge. I'm going to talk a little bit about how Mesh works, from asset issuance, primary market, secondary market, mechanisms, and then asset lifecycle management and servicing. And then I'm going to give you a couple of real-world examples, so concrete use cases of how we have tokenized real financial assets, and how we've created a market for built on the blockchain. So why are we talking about this? Because the numbers are absolutely clear. The market reality is that public listings globally have declined roughly 43% over the last 10 years. So there are almost half the number of publicly listed companies across the world. So what's happening? Where is the money coming from to fund the growth of these companies? Well, it's coming from the private markets, coming from private capital, private equity, private debt, etc. And the interesting thing about this is that structurally it's changed. So what's happening is that companies are still listing, but they're listing much later in their life cycle. So in, sort of 10 years ago and before, companies would list at about 4 years in, and they'd list on a stock exchange in order to generate capital for growth, right, to actually help them grow their businesses. Now they're on average listing at around year 11 in their life cycle. And generally that's being treated as an exit strategy for the founders. So what does that mean for us as investors? If you are only focusing on the listed markets, you're going to probably miss about 90% of the growth curve of a company, because that's the exponential growth happens at the moment prior to companies entering the traditional exchanges. So private markets certainly are growing at an exponential rate. I think you can see from this slide is that that it's growing across different asset classes in the financial markets, and it could be growing anywhere to 9 to 18 trillion by 2027, according to some forecasters. So it's very, very exciting, and we're seeing a lot of moves from big international players. But the problem with private markets is that they are complex, they are fragmented, they are opaque, they're expensive, they're time-consuming, and it's really, really hard to find standard information and documents about private entities. There's a slow time to close. There are high legal and administration fees in private investments, very limited access. The tickets prices are incredibly high, and it's very hard for professional and retail investors to get access. And then when it comes to secondary market trade and liquidity, it's virtually non-existent. So there's definitely big problems, but even with the problems, we're still seeing the growth projections of the tokenized asset, private asset market growing exponentially. This is a BCG and Ripple study. And what's really, really interesting from a lot of the studies that are done out there is that there's definitely a shift in mindset. Mesh, we founded Mesh in 2020. We've been building this institution-grade market infrastructure for that many years. And we have seen a dramatic shift from the institutional mindset to this technology in terms of adoption and in terms of willingness to experiment and explore. So Tokenization is definitely also redefining asset management. You just heard a fabulous presentation now, and you can see it from all of the big institutions on that list and what they're doing. But we've got to recognize that tokenization doesn't magically create demand, but it standardizes, it compresses timelines, it improves data integrity, it improves transparency of the markets. You've heard this from all the previous speakers. It lowers administration costs, your middle and back office costs dramatically, and it enables controlled, compliant secondary market transactions in a way that the current public markets just can't do. They're not structurally built to deliver that. So what are we talking about when we really look at the fundamental basis for why we exist as a business? We have this firm belief that capital markets should be easy to access for everybody. They should be simple to use. In other words, utility and usability really shouldn't require technical expertise around coding on the blockchain and or potential etc. And the other thing is they should be transparent. I think that certainly from our opening speaker, if you don't make things transparent, then you leave it up to human nature, which will always be looking for an angle or a gap in the market. And that's the beauty of the blockchain. So what is Mesh? Mesh is the future of capital markets today. There's my slide. Yes, we're a multi-sided, as I said, digital capital markets platform. We facilitate and enable the entire journey of the capital markets, from asset issuance and tokenization through to trade, both on primary market offerings as well as secondary market trade, and then really importantly, the life cycle management of those assets throughout their life cycle. So assuming you have a 10-year bond, over that period, you're going to need to service the bond, do interest calculations, pay the coupons, manage your capital, your cap table, so all the investors in the asset in terms of infrastructure. And we give our users the ability to manage their own accounts, both from an issuer perspective, being able to have a transparent view of who's actually invested in their asset, as well as the investor who can see their diversified model portfolio in one place. We are built on the blockchain. In fact, we're our original blockchain. We're blockchain agnostic, so we have a couple of chains that we work on, but originally we built on Stellar. So shout out to the Stellar Foundation. It's an amazing chain. And we have built our own bespoke financial market infrastructure technology on top of the blockchain, because at the time that we started, none of the blockchains enabled us to build what we knew we needed to build, having come out of the capital markets business. We funded by and partner with global blue chip investment companies and technology companies, and we are a CASP, a registered FSP Cat 1 and Cat 2, an accountable institution, so we can operate across Africa. We have a European entity, so we are looking to expand globally fairly shortly. Excuse me. Okay, next slide. So I want to share with you what we've done, because it all sounds fantastic, but this is the actual practical execution of this platform that we've built. This is a really interesting asset that we launched about a year and a half ago to the market. It was an offer to the public, but a private corporate bond that was registered with SIPC. A prospectus was registered so that we could legally take it out to the public. It was called Demos. It is a private school network, and they were looking to raise 100 million rands to fund the development of more schools in the network to meet public demand. Essentially, the structure was a public offer via an SPV, which was set up. And as I said, the prospectus was registered, and we became the market infrastructure to help them to reach their audience. Now, it was quite interesting because we wanted to target both institutional and retail investors. It was really, really important for them that they could make this bond and the opportunity in the bond, and it was prime plus 2, so a really nice return on the asset, on the investment. They wanted to make it available to the parents, their staff, to people in their community who really believed in the vision of this business. And that's where this becomes really powerful, is being able to engage and offer what traditionally in the public markets, a corporate bond, your minimum ticket size is R1 million just to buy one note. So we priced that minimum ticket size because we've built ourselves the way we have. We priced it at a minimum of 5,000, which meant we got incredible retail participation in the offer to the public. And what has happened subsequently, it's become one of the most actively traded assets on our secondary market. We get about a 10 to 15% secondary market turnover, which again is unheard of a corporate bond. Generally, when you buy into a bond, there's no liquidity, there's no way to exit it for the life cycle of the bond, the 10 years or the 5 years or whatever it is. So that really is amazing. And then we enable and facilitate their quarterly coupon payment to investors. And we found a really, really interesting thing is that investors are leaving their coupon payments in their accounts and utilizing that to actually buy more of the same asset. About 50% actually reinvest the coupon every quarter in the same asset because they're getting great returns and they're seeing it's consistently coming through. And then the rest, some do defund, but a lot of them actually take their coupon payments and invest in other asset classes and other assets on the platform. So that's creating really, really a great activity and liquidity in our market. That's Demos. We did it, by the way, in 5 weeks, 100 million in 5 weeks, which was an amazing achievement. We put a lot of effort into generating that awareness for their market. This one was something we absolutely love doing. This was a little bit more recent. We tokenized and fractionalized Krugerrand coins. So our issuer is a dealer in Krugerrand coins, Troy Gold, and what we did, and I've put this slide up to show you how we were able to actually manage a subscription process, because what they wanted to do to incentivize use is they were able to negotiate with the refinery and their suppliers a really good price, and they also discounted their spread on the Krugerrand coins for a short 2-week period. We ran a 2-week subscription period where you needed to register your interest and join a waiting list to get gold Krugerrand coins at the discounted price, and as it opened and we issued those coins, people were able to take advantage. We got great interest and excitement. We got a lot of people who took advantage of the opportunity. And the beauty of what we did here, again, because we're blockchain based, because we have the flexibility around the assets that we take to market, is we were not only able to, so every token was a 1 ounce Krugerrand, but because of our infrastructure, we were able to fractionalize that to a minimum of 50 Rand. So you could actually buy a 50 Rand fraction of a 1 ounce Krugerrand token, and you could continue to invest in gold over, be it every month or whatever, to buy a little bit more over time, so that ultimately you could get to a full Krugerrand. And by the time you hit the 1 ounce and the 1 token, Troy Gold was able to actually deliver that Krugerrand to your home. So it was a really great way. It was also, timing was absolutely perfect on this for us, because we listed it about a month before the gold price did that, which I'm sure so we have some very, very happy investors in Troy Gold, in our gold coin. And more recently, we actually launched silver. Now, silver is a really interesting asset, very difficult to get access to silver, and we've also done it on a fractionalized basis. It's through an issuer called Silverbits. They're a wonderful organization. They have lots of different assets that they're bringing to market with us. And this was amazing because essentially it's essentially a stable coin backed by a real-world asset, right? So they have silver also in a vault, securely protected, and you can buy as little as 10 Rand, whatever you want, and we keep record of your ownership. And you can also, when you get to a certain amount, it's also announced they will give it, they will send it to you. So we've seen some great interest in that as well. And this one we launched in 2 weeks, which was fantastic. It's very rare to be able to create a stable coin and get it to market and start selling it in 2 weeks. We have quite a few funds, ETFs, equities, AMCs. This is one example. It's an issue of ours called Ambro Investments. They manage a number of listed AMCs. They're dual listed in the South Africa on the JSE, and also listed in Frankfurt. Beautiful assets, all global listed equities around a specific theme. These assets have been in market for a while. They've really performed well, and now they're available to Mesh investors, and they are fantastic. And then we've just recently registered US dollar based tokenized funds, Wisdom Tree funds, which are now also available to investors on our platform. So the last example I want to share with you is WISR. We're very proud of this. We actually issued our first stable coin, which is called MZAR, which is a one-to-one backed Rand stable coin utilized for transactions on the platform back in 2021, 22. But what we found from our clients is they sit with this digital currency. It doesn't do anything for them. So I've spoken to you about the coupon payments. So once the coupon's paid, and if there's nothing in that you want to buy at that point, it sits there and it's lazy until such time as you want to deploy your capital. So we introduced WISR, which is a yield-bearing stablecoin that enables the lazy balance to actually earn yield while it's sitting there. Its interest is accrued daily and paid out monthly. So it's really an amazing asset, and we're starting to see both our issuers and our investors utilize it for 5 days or 2 months or whatever, just while the money's sitting there. They're able to earn yield on it. So it's been an amazing experience for us. So really that just gives you a sense of our business. I'm going to end off quickly with just a video overview and yes, take any questions.
Tokenized financial assets are transforming the world of finance. From closed networks to open capital markets, from old exchanges to new ecosystems, from Web 2.0 to Finance 3.0. Tokenized financial assets are a multi-trillion-dollar market, but these tokens reference assets that are issued in the real world by a slow, expensive, and outdated financial system. What if we could make them smart? Mesh is your opportunity to be part of this future. Mesh is a smart asset marketplace. We have built end-to-end financial market infrastructure on the blockchain, making private capital markets easy to access, simple to use, and transparent. Mesh was incubated in 2020. In 2023, the first trades took place on our platform. using our own stablecoin for settlement. Mesh is the first fully licensed crypto asset service provider, able to issue smart assets across debt, equity, and fund classes. In April 2024, we successfully launched Africa's first smart corporate bond. In July, the continent's first smart preference shares, and in September, the first smart funds. Today, we attract a network of institutions, entrepreneurs, advisors, and investors to our multi-sided platform. And we're not done. What if you could issue a smart asset in 30 minutes, deliver its legal structure and term sheet, place it in the primary market, offer it immediately to the right investors? You can with Mesh's Smart Asset Issuer Hub. As you issue your instrument, it will be ready to react to resets, redemptions, coupons, and calculations. You can instantly release your smart assets to a secondary market with built-in liquidity mechanisms. And through Mesh's digital share register and dynamic real-time issuer hub, you can communicate directly with all your stakeholders. If you are an entrepreneur wanting to raise equity or debt capital, an institution structuring opportunities for multiple investor types, an advisor frustrated by the long timelines and exorbitant costs of today's markets, or a smart investor wanting access to private capital investments through public market functionality. Join us as we grow new opportunities, span new geographies, enable new markets, and shape the future of open capital markets.
So that's Mesh, and there's more to come. We're actually listing some beautiful commercial property assets coming up in the next month. New native funds, so funds actually built on the blockchain, which is really exciting. Some global dollar-based funds as well as local. We've got some institutional funds that are launching, some of the names that will be very familiar to you, launching some money market and other funds. And we're exploring conversations with entrepreneurs from coffee to cattle. So really, yeah, we're open for business and we'd love to chat to you. Thank you so much for your time.
You might have some questions. Yeah, we do have some time. I see a question there at the back.
Thank you very much. That was super informative. I'd like to know more about your plans to expand globally. And as a second question, what differentiates Mesh.trade from just a pump fund style platform where you can launch a token? Like, why would someone go to your platform versus going to like pump fund, buying a token for $1, and just kicking off a launch like that?
Okay, thank you for that question. So in terms of our global expansion, as I said, we're a fully licensed entity, so we go through the process of getting licensing before we enter a new jurisdiction. So we're busy working on that. As I said, our first areas will be Europe, probably Southeast Asia. We're looking at a couple of those geographies and the UK. In terms of your second question, is we're very, very circumspect and specific about the types of assets we list. We do not list pump funds or whatever. I know the site and those types of assets. We list actual financial assets. We have just designed a system to tokenize them and enable trade and lifecycle management. So when I say actual financial, I mean corporate bonds, institutional bonds, equities. So a couple of the commercial portfolio propositions or offerings that we're bringing to market are actually buying equity into a commercial development or a commercial fund, as well as listed funds and ETFs, AMCs, etc. Yeah, commodities like your precious metals like gold, silver, but there are a couple of other commodities that we're talking to. So we essentially are a capital markets infrastructure for private markets, for private capital. So where a company isn't ready yet to list on the JSE or doesn't have the appetite or the deep pockets to list on the JSE, but they're at a stage in their life cycle where they're large enough to really scale, and they can't raise the capital to scale the way they need to. Those are the companies we deal with. We do intense due diligence. We have an investment committee. We look at these companies very carefully. We help them with structuring how they are going to take their asset to market, whether it's an offer to the public, whether it's a private placement, etc. We work with them. We hold their hands around that, and we help them take their proposition to market. It's a very, very different model. I hope that answered your question. Cool. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, Louisa. Mine's more on the regulatory side of things. Currently, we know a phase license governs the advice and intermediary services pertaining to a crypto asset, not quite the secondary market trading or issuances as we know in the traditional sense under the Financial Markets Act. Where do you see the regulatory environment for your business specifically moving in future, given we've got an existing act, the Financial Markets Act, but there's no real rails for you to operate in that act? Do you have any insight on where it's going for you? Will you need an exchange license in future? We'd just love to know your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. So we are regulated under FSCA. We are a licensed FSP, Cat 1 and Cat 2, and we fall within the CASP sort of group of licenses. I think somebody mentioned it earlier. There are about 300 of us and we're very highly regulated. We're very compliant with regulation. We need to be in order to maintain our status, and we do full KYC of both sides, all the players in our environment on our platform. We do AML, sort of all of the requirements for a fully regulated financial services provider and accountable institution. We are very, very focused on delivering. So we are not at the moment. We don't fall into the exchange license requirements, and we are incredibly careful. You saw when I spoke about DEMOS, the bond, the corporate bond that we issued, that went through all of the Companies Act requirements around taking an asset like that to the public or offering an asset like that to the public. So we make sure both from our compliance side that we work with our issuers, who are generally, as we said, not listed entities. They're looking to raise capital. The banks can't help them or are not willing to help them. They need to grow. We help them to structure either a special purpose vehicle or an entity that will allow them to raise capital directly, either through a private placement, which has slightly different regulation, or a public offer, which requires a prospectus and everything around that. So I hope that answers your question. Yes.
Are you privately owned or publicly owned?
Yes, we are privately owned. We basically are part of a broader group called the 42 Markets Group, which comes out of the world of capital markets, sort of working with big investment banks and central banks around trade and treasury. That's our background. We spun off from that business. We have an external investor. We raised capital a couple of years ago, which is Convergence Partners, but otherwise and then a couple of, obviously, our core team. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah. So
that's the last question.
Last question.
You jumped in there. Last one.
Hi, Luisa. Thank you very much. I think what you guys are doing is actually very interesting. So I think I saw earlier on a slide you mentioned something like a tokenized private equity. Are you also guys looking into that?
Yes. Yes, we, as I said, we've issued or we've built what we call an issuer hub, which enables our issuers to actually sit and structure and define all the legal, commercial sort of structures of the asset. And we can do debt, equity, funds, any form of asset class. We're cross-asset in terms of it. And one of them is equity. I think we also, in terms of the gap we fill, we enable entrepreneurs to actually go out and actually find private equity, not just from the institutions or the private equity firms who are very hard to get access to, but to actually find that investment from their audience, from their market, from their customers who are passionate about their business and really want to help the business survive and be sustained. I hope that answers your question. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your time.